All right, guys, Jason Up, New 80s Revolution here. We are going to interrupt the usual Wrestling with the Past episodes of WWF Championship Wrestling 1984, and we're going to get back to the magazine reviews that you guys enjoy. Don't worry, the Wrestling with the Past that you're used to will start back up again maybe tonight. Maybe tonight I'll sit down there and watch January 21st, 1984 with you. But for now, we're going to review my favorite magazine. My favorite wrestling magazine from childhood was Pro Wrestling Illustrated. I loved this magazine. I thought, hands down, this was the best of the, like the Apter magazines, the Inside Wrestling, the Wrestler, and Pro Wrestling Illustrated were the big three from Apter. And I loved this one. I had so many, cool features. The arena reports, the pin-up in the middle. At the end of it, there's like a breaking news newspaper section. I'll show you when we get there. But this is the February 1985 issue, which means it's going to cover probably, I'd say, from like October '84. So. These are always several months behind. On the cover, you got Rick Martel with that just massive AWA world title belt. Always loved that belt just because it was huge. I always, the bigger the belt, the better, I thought. Great cover. It tells us what we're looking for. We got an interview with Bob Backlund. Let's get into it. I always thought that guy was Tony Garea. First couple pages of all these magazines are stupid ads. Let me pull it over here a little bit more. So we got the ads, whatever, who cares. This is the letters, right? The fan letters. Now again, I've said this in other episodes. I'm not sure if these are actual letters. I assume that they are. I assume that Marks, especially in the 80s, like myself, would definitely want to write to a magazine. I think some might be faked, I guess, or written by the producers of the magazine, because some of them are just so childish and so silly that you got to think, wow, who would somebody actually write that letter? So, but for the majority, I think they're legit. Here's another opportunity for you to make $12.50 an hour. How about that? Make $12.50 an hour becoming a locksmith. Not bad. I was always a big fan of this section, and this was in all the magazines. Like all the Apter magazines would have like this ringside report, right, where they would go all around the world, all around the country, and update you on the happenings in the wrestling world. And in 1985, what did we have? We had WWF. Maybe we caught some AWA, and we had NWA on Saturday night. But this column gave you the opportunity to, to learn about everything else that was going on in the wrestling world. And that's how I saw some people before I actually saw the people. Like Kamala and Billy Jack Haynes here, and some of the lesser names, from, Mid-South and Oregon and, federations, territories like that. You would learn about them more here. And then when they would show up on, WWF TV or NWA TV, you'd be like, oh, I saw that guy in the magazine a couple months ago. Now the thing with these magazines is let's see if it does. Yeah. All of the stories are continued on in the back of the magazine, and I guess I never understood that. Why? If you start the ringside report here on page 8, why don't you just put it on page 9, and then maybe page 10, right? Why do we have to go all the way to the back of the magazine to continue? Continued on page 50. Why do we got to go to page 50 to continue the ringside report? Anyway. Some diet ads, of course, if you're looking to trim off inches with some gimmick here, I'm not sure. More gimmick pages. King's Court. These particular articles I never read as a kid. I never cared anything about them. They're like, I don't know, like an opinion piece or nonsense story. As an 8-year-old, as a 9-year-old, I never really cared about any of these side articles. Again, more gimmicks. I mean, these magazines are full of these advertising pages, which, again, I assume helps pay for the development of the magazine. I mean, these are advertisements, so these companies paid to get in the magazine. So, I don't think the Pro Wrestling Illustrated cared what they were putting in here. And I remember, this just brought me back. A little later, maybe around age 11, age 12, some of the lesser known magazines, their ads were very adult. If you remember, like these are not the After magazines, and these might not even be the magazines that you got at the grocery store, but some of the wrestling magazines would have an entire page or two basically advertising adult videos. And there were some pictures, some edited pictures, but there were some pictures. And the titles were not edited, which was interesting as an 11-year-old to read. But how many of you guys remember that, when there was actual adult videos advertised in wrestling magazines? Dressing Room Confidential, that's another article I never read. I don't even know who these are. Steve Constant, I don't know who this is. Steve Constant runs right through the rope barrier and into the ring. I don't know. I have no idea. I think at one point this was probably a Superstar Billy Graham. Maybe had to break the full Nelson gimmick, and this weightlifter bodybuilder guy jumped in the ring, got killed obviously by Billy Graham, and gets carried out. I love that. I do like when they back in the 80s, when they would have like a football player or a boxer or somebody come in and just get slaughtered by the you get a legitimate tough guy being slaughtered by an illegitimate tough guy. I loved it. Great little subscription to Pro Wrestling Illustrated there. Off the Top Rope. So that's Dan Shockett. Now, all throughout PWI's history, first it was Dan Shockett, who I think was a legitimate person, and he died. He died in like 85, 86, legitimately. And I'm sure he was a young guy. I'm sure he was in his 20s. Dan Shockett was the heel of the magazine, and so people would write to him, and his responses would be heelish. He hated the good guys, he loved the bad guys, and people, I think that these are maybe legit letters, but he would just blast them as the bad guy of the wrestling magazine. And when he died, he was replaced by Eddie Elner, right? So then, eventually, I think there's probably even a magazine that or an issue that mentions Dan Shockett's death. And then Eddie Elner comes in and is the same exact, heel persona in the magazine. It's actually fun. It's because Shockett and Elner would just insult every wrestler they could think of, every good guy, and they would insult the writers, the fans who were writing in. It was brilliant. And again, I assume some of the letters are real. I assume some of the letters are made up. More ads. This I always thought was funny. You can get explosive power in your fist. As a kid, I thought that you would buy this hammer, like this big chunk of metal, and you would just like carry it around. But it's really just a wristband, right? You get a wristband. You get to wear a wristband all around all day, and strengthen your wrist strength and your fist strength, I assume, so that you could have hammer fists, right? They don't send you a hammer. They don't send you a big chunk of iron. They send you a band, right? I didn't know that. I just learned that. The classic, we've all seen these if we are fans of these magazines, the classic back issue page where you can order years worth of magazines for only $2 each, which is awesome. On Assignment, again, another article that I didn't care about. This one's about Jimmy Hart, Eddie Gilbert. Again, this is 85, so this is right after, well, this is February 85. So this is like right after Eddie Gilbert left the WWF. And, you know, if you're going to become a bad guy, if you're going to, like, you know, try to change your image, you gotta grow a beard. And so the baby-faced Eddie Gilbert in the WWF goes to Memphis, takes on Jimmy Hart as his manager, grows a beard, and of course that means he's a bad guy. Advertisement for the Pro Wrestling board game, looks like. The Deluxe Edition Superstar Pro Wrestling game. You know, pretty cool. What else we got here? I'm looking at these. So these are the stores that you can buy them in. This is pretty cool. I can almost guarantee you that none of these places exist still. So in New York, nothing in Rochester. Utica, New York is fairly close to me. The A&J Hobby House in Utica, New York. I'm guessing that the A&J Hobby House does not exist anymore. I never got these games. Never. The press conference. The interview. Every magazine had one. WWF magazine had one. This is actually a cool interview because, well, conceptually, Bob Backlund had left the WWF and was getting involved with Pro Wrestling USA, which was an NWA, AWA hybrid, also other territories. But I read this, and he talks about the WWF. Now, these interviews are fake. They've always been fake, you know, so they could basically write whatever they wanted. And I always thought that was, when I found out they were fake, I thought it was cool. Because even as a kid, I never bought the interviews. I never, like the way that the wrestlers would talk in the interview, I never thought, like, that doesn't sound like them. But of course, the interviews are fake. Let's see. Just more of the interview, you know, good stuff. And then, you know, a couple of little clips, segments here, you know, talking about other areas of the wrestling world. They're starting to talk about the Rock and Wrestling Connection, Hulk Hogan and Cyndi Lauper. That's about to blow up. This part, again, also gimmicked, also fake, where they would, you know, basically take a quote from a wrestler and put it in the magazine. The writers, you know, you gotta appreciate the writers of these magazines because they're writing all of this. You know, none of these guys are saying these things, and I think that's, you know, the magazines had to, like, because the magazines were writing these articles, you know, they were writing these interviews. They basically had to protect the wrestlers. I think it was the magazine's job to protect the wrestlers. So you know, you wouldn't want a bad guy to start saying nice things. So you can't write nice things for a bad guy. You have to keep the bad guy bad, and vice versa for the good guy. So, you know, I think the magazine writers had a job to do. They had to keep the kayfabe going, if you will. And then we get into some stories. So this is you know, or some of the major articles of the magazine. This is in the middle of the greatest period of the NWA. You know, the 84 and 85 of the NWA is just, God, some of my favorite memories of watching wrestling. But, you know, the awesome feud between Tully Blanchard and Dusty Rhodes. And then again, we gotta jump to, you know, it's continued on page 62. Again, why why not just have it on the next page? Then we have an article on Rick Martel. But back to this. Obviously with the LJN figures, and when I'm doing Wrestling with the Past, it's all about the WWF, and when I watch the TV shows, it's all about WWF, and so you would think that I'm a WWF guy, or that I was as a kid, and I was, but I don't know. I also watched TBS 605, NWA Championship Wrestling. Watched it pretty faithfully, and I think even as a kid, I might have liked it more. Two different styles, two different presentations, very different wrestlers. Even the AWA. AWA was very serious. NWA was very serious. WWF was not, and I guess obviously as an 8-year-old kid, I would want to follow the federation that had the T-shirts and the action figures, right? So I moved more towards WWF. But sitting around, even as a kid, I loved watching just basic wrestling with no gimmicks. So more on the Rick Martel article. This was a big reason why I loved the PWI, was this poster. Every issue had a poster in the magazine, and as a kid, posters were all over my wall. This one happens to be of Magnum TA. Take a look at that. Now you're saying, well, let me get that down there. Now, if you look at it, it sort of looks a little Playgirl-ish, right? I mean, what 8-year-old kid is going to want this on their wall? We see that Magnum TA is that, I might have called him Magnum PI earlier. Magnum TA is the hairiest guy known to man, right there. He's a Sasquatch. But my God, did chicks dig this guy or what? But take a look at this. Take a look at that. That is the Mid-South North American Wrestling Championship belt. It's the biggest belt I've ever seen. It's huge. It's gigantic. So anyway, honestly, as a kid, this pinup probably would have been on my wall. It probably would have. All right, is the Hulkster in danger of burning out? Wow, yeah. So they're paying close attention to maybe the Hulk's crazy schedule as a new world's champion. Here he is taking on Cowboy Bob Orton. I believe this was from Saturday night's main event. Hogan fought Orton on the first Saturday night's main event. I don't know if this can be, though, because... No, this can't be, because the first Saturday night's main event aired in, March, April of '85, so that's definitely not that. Oh, yeah, this is the Wrestling Inquirer section. This is like the little newspaper section I was telling you about, where they basically just give you a bunch of headlines about what's going on, and it's usually breaking news, right? So you usually get a lot of breaking news right here. Chris Adams turns on the Von Erichs. This is when Chris Adams turns heel. Garden crowd witnesses Hulk Hogan, John Studd signing. So I remember that Madison Square Garden card where Bobby Heenan had Hulk Hogan sign a contract to take on John Studd. So stuff all around the wrestling world. Big updates from what's going on. We got a Precious Paul Ellering article saying, if I had a manager like me, I'd be champion. Okay. So this is very young Paul Ellering. Paul Ellering changed looks really dramatically between 84, 85, and 86. Here he kind of looks like, kind of like Rick Steiner a little bit. Decent wrestler, Precious Paul Ellering, before he becomes famous, I guess, for managing the Road Warriors. Matt Brock, this section takes a closer look at a particular wrestler. This is Billy Jack Haynes. He's that close. Where's my hands? He's that close to joining the WWF for the first time. In fact, it might have already happened. The WWF brought Billy Jack Haynes in, and he did a couple of vignettes when he was riding on a horse. And I believe that they were just going to call him Billy Jack. And it never went any further than that. He did not join the WWF at the time. He taped a few vignettes for them. You can see them on YouTube. And he then he went back to, Northwest. He went back to like Portland and did his thing there, and then joined the WWF again in late '86 or so. And then here's all the continuations of the stories. I always thought this was awesome. You could send in your picture and they would put it on a PWI magazine. And I always wondered what the heck was the deal with that guy. Like, what is he? Take a closer look at him. What is he doing? That's like the least intimidating person in the world. And I wouldn't think that an adult would do that. I would kind of think that a kid would do it. More ads. This is the continuation of the Ringside Report. That's when you see guys like this, Kendo Nagasaki, right? And you're like, what? Who the heck is Kendo Nagasaki? I mean, he looks, again, like, the least intimidating person on the planet. He's got this horrible, balding haircut. Apparently you could get badges to get yourself arrested for, falsely impersonating an officer. That's good. Here you can draw any person in 1 minute with no talent, right? Just get this, 1 minute, draw any person you want. More back issues, more Ringside, more article or more advertisements for the magazines, more back issues. Again, continuation of stories, continuation of story. Two of the worst. Two of the absolute drizzling right there. Angelo Mosca and Angelo Mosca Jr. Both look like cavemen. Both look like they just stepped out of the cave. Cro-Magnon, I think it's called. These guys do not look like they have morphed into humans yet. They're like 85% of the way there. More stories. More continuation of stories, more back issues. This tells you what's coming up next month in the Apter magazines, or this month apparently. The Wrestler and Inside Wrestling, those three were my favorite. And then it just tells you what to look forward to. More continuation of stories. You can get the now legal energy pills, right? We're glad that we waited it out. Now they're legal. You can get them. This was always my favorite part. This is the Arena Report. Apparently some kid got really into it and for some reason whited out a match and then wrote a match in. So I don't know. This one's in Uniondale, New York, and this one's in Madison Square Garden. So you're wondering, did he go to both shows? Did he go to both shows and then record jot down what really happened? I don't know. All I can see is he's whiting out a match and he's writing in another one. I love that. But this was a WWF specific Arena Report. Usually it covered the whole country, all the federations, all the territories. This one is just special to WWF for some reason. And so when you go through here, you see your big cards like Madison Square Garden and the Spectrum, but then you also see the Carbondale Arena High School in Carbondale, Pennsylvania. Apparently had a card. And the WWF sent their C team, it looks like. We've got Ivan Putski defeating Paul Orndorff in what I assume is the main event. Iron Sheik defeated Chief Jay Strongbow. Kamala was there and beat Rick McGraw. Iron Mike Sharp defeated A.J. Petruzzi. Yes, we will see him on Wrestling with the Past upcoming. And then they sent the ladies in. The special ladies attraction, Velvet McIntyre versus Judy Martin. So you can see that they're really sending a very light bus. Not a lot of folks going to that show. You're definitely not getting your Hulk Hogan. You're not getting your Andre the Giant at these high school cards. Michael Hayes and Bad Street USA, a Road Warrior t-shirt offer. How great would it be to have that shirt? It was only $10. And let's see. This is another favorite section of mine, the official PWI ratings. Again, you got to see names that you'd never heard of before. I mean, take a look at some of these names. These are, for me as a kid, Mr. Ebony, Mike Miller, right? Bobby Jaggers, the Mid-South Spoiler, right? Phil Hickerson, Sonny King, you know, Mike Davis, Bugsy McGraw. You know, you learn about these guys. You see their names. You've never heard of them before. You know, you don't get Northwest Championship Wrestling or Mid-South Championship Wrestling in upstate New York as a kid. You don't get it. You don't see it. You never see it. You have no idea what it is until you get these magazines. You start to read about some of these guys. Right? And that's it. This page analyzes the ratings on the previous page. Sometimes they would have a special, like this is the second 10, right? So they extend the top 10, and they give you 10 more guys to read about. So that's that. The back cover is always something. Just another PWI ad for some PWI gear. I would love to have this t-shirt. Obviously, you can make that t-shirt. That t-shirt exists all over the internet. The Pro Wrestling Illustrated Old School. You know, you can get it printed up on TeePublic. I might get one. I really like that PWI t-shirt. Might try to get the trucker hat as well, the mesh back. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so that's that. That's the February 1985 issue of Pro Wrestling Illustrated. Rick Martel, AWA champion, gigantic world title on the cover. We'll see you soon. Good night now.